Hi.
Shifting gears for a second, I kind of want to go back to the whole thing about choosing between the SAT 1 and SAT 2s if we had to. I was actually discussing this with a roommate of mine last night, that like I'm confused as to what are the motivations behind like rejecting the SAT 2 in favor of the SAT 1s, and I realized that throughout this conversation that there have been multiple reasons that have been repeatedly brought up, that it's more convenient for more students to take it, or that like it's a political justification for rejecting students. And I was wondering if there was like any like known or like tangible reasoning behind that. Like, is it just that they're trying to lower the admissions rate? They're trying to like attract higher income students and garner more revenue? Is it something like that, or is it just like we don't know?
We really don't know. But that's a problem because of all the deliberation that's occurred within the committees of the academic senate, basically.
So is it just because of like lack of transparency?
Again, if you would refer to the response that Boris made to some of these criticisms, I believe it is addressed in that.
Sorry, Professor Johnson, I've been sitting on this for a while. So one of the things is that, we don't know what the motivations behind it are. Like I said, I would strongly believe that there are economic motivations. We have a higher price tag on a UC education now. That drops a whole lot of people who can't afford to pay UC when they look at that price tag out of the applicant pool. What does that mean? It means a more affluent applicant pool who is less likely to receive financial aid. And so I would guess that that is likely to be a cash cow for the university. And I also wanted to address a couple of the points made around the uncertainty of these simulations run by the university, and because I have a lot of uncertainty in it too, but I have uncertainty that that the numbers were extreme. I think that because of the budget cuts, because of this increased price tag on the UC, and because of the cuts in enrollment campus by campus, and because for example, UC Berkeley will be admitting 2,400 more international out-of-state students next semester, that we will vastly be underestimating the effects that are projected in these studies. And similarly, I realize, Professor Johnson, that you said that there's no study saying, or that the latest study says that it's potentially race neutral. But if you look at the 3 studies, there's not a single one of them that says that it will increase diversity. 3 studies, regardless of one if there's neutral, there's not a single one that says it will increase diversity. And so that makes, to me, and to I think a whole lot of other students in this room, that makes Bohr's earnestness to pass this policy blind faith and a big risk. And so along with this risk, I think the other reason that that this policy is turning off a lot of people is the attitude of the UC Office of the President. And if you heard Mark Yudof quoted on this issue, he said that Asians would be just fine. That was his quote, just fine. And anytime you make glaring generalities about an entire ethnic group, which should be disaggregated, by the way, I think that is a big no-no, and that is something that very much turns me off to this. And another thing is that because the 3rd study, I believe, said that it would, or maybe the 2nd one said that it would decrease African American enrollment across the system by 27%. You look at UC San Diego, 1.3% students. That makes it less than, that makes African American students on that campus less than 1%. And we've all looked at lists of representation on campus. We know that every time there is a certain student population or a certain population of people comprising less than 1% of a body, they're forgotten about. They're ignored. They are summed up in one category of other. And so I just think this is more otherization of students, and that's not okay.
So I know we have a comment question here. Are there other students who also want to say something? Okay, so about her.
So I am a part of the other because I'm not specified on the application. I'm Egyptian, so there's no other. There's only African American, Asian or Pacific Islander, and there's white Caucasian. And I wanted to know, why don't you think that this is going to change? Because I am one of those people, and yes, I do have good grades, but there's other people like me that have the same things that will get rejected, and I might get rejected, and I don't know, because I didn't get my confirmations back. But I wanted to know, like, why don't you think this is going to change?
Because I believe that all campuses will have the opportunity to look beyond test scores and grades into comprehensive review. But I believe the comprehensive review is a better way of choosing students that doesn't overly rely on any particular number or score. And it allows us to look at you in context. And we at Berkeley have been doing that for 10 years. And other campuses are not doing it at all. And it allows us to really, we no longer reject students for being, quote, ineligible. So if you don't meet eligibility and you apply to Berkeley, you get a full review. And we believe that there are more students who are strong students, who are capable of succeeding at UC, who may be willing to apply if it's entitled to review is available as opposed to a guarantee that very few students take advantage of.
Sorry to interrupt.
I'm sorry.
I mean, I just want to say something because I don't think this is just about numbers and percentages. And I mean, this is about people and the education of people of California. And I consider that any policy that does not fight for public education as a right for all the communities, that is to say that does not fight to desegregate the UC, which actually is segregated and is exclusionary, that is to say that this does not fight to increase the enrollment and represented group, any policy is illegitimate. And any administration that does not use the public money to fund education, like the one we have now, is also legitimate. An institution that has $5 billion in reserve and is laying off people, like raising fees, and is like excluding people from education is illegitimate. And this is a discussion we should be having here. What kind of institution we want to? When we talk about UC as a public institution, what do we mean to the communities in Oakland, to the communities in Richmond, in Fremont, in LA? What do we mean to them? Do we mean just a question of projections and numbers, or do we mean that they have the right not to have their application reviewed, but the right to attend an institution to have education? And this is what we should be discussing here. Not just what is the 3 other students that will be admitted, or no, maybe it will be 2, or maybe it will be 1, and just start the discussion. I think this is what we should confront the administration. Are you serious about providing public education to the people of California, or do you want to privatize the UC as the numbers show? And as Ariel has been pointing out, the fact that they're reducing the number of students that come from communities of color and poor communities is because they don't want to pay for financial aid, because this is too expensive also for the UC administration. And I think that this is what we need to consider, not only how many numbers or what is percentages, it's about people.
Well, I just want to say that, if the best case scenario, as sort of posited by the 3 simulation studies, is a race-neutral outcome, and we've talked about that, that is hardly a sort of basis for pursuing this sort of policy. And it's really interesting to see, with the release of the first simulation study, UCOC and the UC administration also appended analysis of that particular study. And it's very interesting to see the kind of ideological reasoning that the university had for supporting the policy, even in the face of its own data suggesting that it would be harmful to diversity. And the way the university argues against mitigation of future harm is that students will change their behavior to get into school. So I mean, this is precisely the wrong way to think about how to best serve the California public. And also, in tandem with that, are really ideological readings of different group behaviors. The thing about Asians, they'll be fine, is the idea that even in the face of structural harm, it's the model minority myth, Asian American students will nonetheless rise. Even if granted fewer spaces, more Asians will take those, Asian Americans will take those. And so that there's a kind of ideological reading of different group behaviors that is nowhere substantiated by the data of the actual simulated studies themselves. And so you have to wonder, where is that coming from? And so, in any case, that's just what I wanted to add that.